right, fresh off the heels of a pretty eventful game one between the Vegas Golden Knights and Minnesota Wild, we have full coverage here from The Athletic. We've got Jesse Granger representing Vegas, and I mean, just the most unique form of human that is an NHL goaltender. And Joe Smith, as always, covering the Wild. Guys, I don't know where we want to start. I'll just step back and to the two of you that were there for the opening presentation, saw the game live, saw the players post game. Like, what's your initial reaction to how game one played out?
Well, I just think how tight checking everything was, and there was literally no, for as fast as the game was, there was really no space out there, especially getting in the inside, and it seems like they'll take a lot for a penalty to be called on either side, and so that'll be, I think, a pretty big adjustment. I mean, I guess Vegas is one of the least penalized teams in the league, right? So I guess they're used to it, but this will be a 5-on-5 series pretty much. I mean, onus will be on the Wild or in Vegas to find ways to score that way. And, each team got a power play last night, and Vegas took advantage, and that's probably a big reason why they won.
Yeah, it's funny. I was watching all the reaction on Twitter. Obviously, it's the playoffs, so now the whole hockey world is watching. Whereas, I've been watching the Golden Knights all year, and it seemed like every Golden Knights game I've ever seen all year. They're not just the least penalized team in the league. They're the first team in the history of the NHL to take less than 200 penalties in a season, I believe. They also got the fewest power play opportunities this season. There just aren't penalties in these games, and it's been that way all year. And I feel like every game there are a couple that you could point to here or there. Like, obviously the Hartman cross check to the face by Nick Hague is the obvious one. That pretty much everybody would agree that is a penalty. But yeah, Golden Knights games have been this way all year. There aren't a lot of penalties going either way. I will say I totally agree with there's just no ice out there. I think both these teams are playing very risk-averse hockey. They're not turning the puck over. They're not trying to force things through the neutral zone. And I said before the series, I think this is going to be a waiting game. And whatever team can be more patient and not run out of patience and try to force plays is going to win the game. And I thought last night, neither team got impatient. I thought both teams stayed to their structure. They didn't try to force passes that weren't there through the neutral zone. We saw hardly any odd man rushes either way. The one was Brett Howden barreling down the left side, and he ended up scoring that goal that became the game winner, but almost no transition chances. And that's pretty much both these teams' style. I think we're going to see a lot of games like this where it's going to be hard to find offense.
And you look at, since, it'll be such a tight series and goals were at a premium, where do you take from the goaltending last night? Of course, I thought both goalies made some terrific saves. Look at Gustafsson save on Eichel, kept it a 2-1 game. The one he didn't see, said he didn't see the power play because Theodore froze him a little bit. But overall, how do you goaltending matchup last night?
Yeah, I thought they both played pretty well. Neither was amazing, but I thought they were both solid. I thought Adin Hill had a slight edge, and that's why his team ends up winning by a goal. The first goal that Hertl scored was a tough play. I did tweet out kind of criticizing Gustafsson a little bit by using the RVH in that situation, but we're talking splitting hairs, and sometimes in the NHL, splitting hairs is the difference between a save and a goal. And I thought that instead of dropping into the RVH there, if he would have kind of overlapped his post and just come out a couple extra inches, then you can still drop into butterfly and still get down and cover the ice the way he wanted to. But you would have had that extra depth. And I think that corner probably wouldn't have been there, and it would have hit him in the shoulder. But that is a very minute criticism of a goalie in a split-second decision. It's also not a play that developed, right? As a goalie, you're reading the play, it's developing. It just happened right in front of him. Hertl stole the puck, and all of a sudden you've got a guy right in your face about to shoot. So that is a criticism, but a very minor one. I thought Gustafsson, to me, is just so technically sound. He is as technically sound of a goalie as there is in the NHL. His lateral movement, he can't explode real quick from side to side. I think you can get him moving, you can score on him, but he is just very, very rarely in a bad position. And that's why that power play goal by Dorofeev was such a shocker. You hardly ever see that much net open playing against Gustafsson, but it was just a combination of Hertl screening him at the perfect time, and Theodore with a phenomenal stick fake. I mean, he held that slap, that wind up so long. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure the goalie sees this is a shot. He held that thing up and then just slid it right over. It was a beautiful play by Theodore. It's hard to fault the goalies for many of the goals last night.
And you mentioned Gustafsson being technically sound. I'm pretty sure a lot of Swedish goalies are technically sound too, the way they came from their school, schooling there. But just overall, you read him as a goalie. Like, this is obviously a guy who's grown into the Wild number one of the present, and very well could be the future. You have a guy like 27 years old in his prime of his career. Like, where is he kind of as he this part of his career, and as kind of tries to make the ascent into, one of the top goalies in the league?
Yeah, he's very good. I think he's like mid-tier. I think he's definitely an above average starting goalie in the NHL. I wonder if he has it in him to be like elite, like a Vezina caliber goalie. Like we saw early in the year, he was putting up Vezina numbers. It faded a little bit as the season went on, and that obviously coincided with Minnesota losing a bunch of their top players in front of him. But I just don't know if he's quite athletic enough to be like what Sorokin and Shesterkin and Vasilevsky and these guys do. Hellebuck's obviously not as athletic as those guys, but he's a special mind. That guy reads the play like no other human being on earth. So I have a hard time comparing anyone to him, but yeah, I think he's a very, very good goalie who may have a capped ceiling. Like I think maybe like the 10th or 9th or 8th best goalie in the league might be his ceiling. I could be wrong. There are guys that overcome like that aren't the most athletic guy ever. Henrik Lundqvist is a great example. You can be elite without being super athletic, but yeah, that's how I see Gustafsson. It's just a really solid goalie who's always in the right positions. Like he is the goalie that goalie coaches love. Like when you're trying to teach a young goalie, show them film of Philip Gustafsson. He's in the right positions. He's square to the puck at all times. And to me, that's why his rebound control is so good. Before this series, I was looking up and I noticed that like Minnesota, I think 4th fewest rebound goals this season against, and the fewest rebound shots against. And I think that's a massive, I think Gustafsson is a huge, huge reason for that. He absorbs pucks well. He deflects them into the corners well. And when he doesn't, and the puck bounces into a dangerous area, the speed where the puck comes off of his body, the speed he gets to square to that puck and just follows it off of his body is really impressive. He just does all the little things right.
Well, and you look at this Vegas team, obviously you got one of the hotter teams in the league after the 4 Nations break. A lot of guys who were on that team from the Cup team few years back. Like, how is this group different maybe from that group that won the championship in terms of how they play or just kind of the makeup of the group?
Yeah, I mean, they're very similar. There aren't too many changes to the lineup, but I will say that like Jonathan Marchessault was the big piece from that team. And like, obviously he wins the Conn Smythe. He scored every single time for 7 years. If the Golden Knights absolutely need a goal in the worst way possible, he was the guy to do it. So it's not just the number of goals he scored. It's like that dude was always the guy in the big moments. So you lose him, and who's it going to be? And they have plenty of talent to take that over with Jack Eichel and Mark Stone. Tomas Hertl's been huge this year, but Pavel Dorofeev has really stepped into that role. And it was an interesting storyline coming into these playoffs because this is his 3rd year in the NHL. The first season 2 years ago, he came in and kind of established himself as an every night guy down the stretch. I think he played in like 14 of the last 15 games. And then the playoffs got here and Cassidy benched him. He was a young guy. Cassidy didn't really trust him that much. He did not play a single game in the playoffs on the way to the Cup run. Then next year, he played in the NHL basically all season long, and then the playoffs got here, and Cassidy scratched him again. He ended up playing 1 game in that Dallas series, and he only played 7 minutes that night, and then he came right back out of the lineup. And it was clear that Cassidy, while he likes his shooting and he likes the offensive threat, he wasn't quite there to trust him along the walls and with the rest of the game. So coming into this season, it's like, well, obviously you're not going to bench the 35 goal scorer, your leading goal scorer, but how much will Cassidy trust him and how well will he play in the playoffs? And I thought he was good last night all over the ice. He obviously scores that goal. He didn't have to do much there, just hit the net, but it's a good monkey to get off his back so that 5 games from now, we're not in there asking him, wow, Pavel, you haven't scored a goal in the playoffs. Is it harder to score in the playoffs? It's nice to get that out of the way and not have to worry about that narrative building. So it was a great game for him. I think this team is good. I would say it's probably not quite as good as the team from 2 years ago. I think Petrangelo's 2 years older and he's a stud, and he's not quite, I don't think he's quite at the level he was 2 years ago, but he's still good enough to obviously play big minutes. But yeah, I think this is a really good, deep Golden Knights team without many obvious flaws.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if Carlson talked post game yesterday. You mentioned trust, and John Hynes showed a lot of trust in Zeev Buium for a rookie 19-year-old in his first NHL game in a playoff game in the last 90 seconds of a game on a 6-on-5 situation. And that's said a lot about him and about the coaching staff too. I mean, obviously, if you're going to play this kid, you might as well play him where his strengths are. But that play that kind of sealed the game was the pass that him to Boldy and Carlson got in the passing lane there. You've covered Carlson for a while now. Is that something he does? I'm sure a lot of times, just his reads in his career, or like what do you make of that play as it finished the game?
Yeah, that's as William Karlsson of a play as he makes. I mean, the guy is so trusted in the defensive zone. He's been that way his whole career. He was that way in Columbus before Vegas got him in the expansion. But back then, that's all he did. That's why Columbus wanted Vegas to take him in the expansion draft. Was it's like, well, he's a good, solid defensive fourth line center. He's obviously developed into much more of an offensive threat in Vegas, but he still has that defensive game. He's one of their best penalty killers. He's always out there at end of game situations when you're protecting a goal, I'm interested in seeing how Cassidy uses him moving forward, because you talking to Golden Knights players and talking to Cassidy after the game last night, the one thing that's very clear in terms of like, you can always kind of tell what they just talked about in the room because everyone is parroting it, and everyone mentioned how dangerous that top line is. And they thought that they didn't do particularly well against the Kaprizov line. Like they felt that line got the better of them, and that's the biggest focus moving forward is we have got to be aware when that line's on the ice, and we've got to do better against them. I went back and looked at who Kaprizov was playing against. Obviously, Cassidy controls the matchups a little easier at home, and it was surprisingly there wasn't really a matchup. Like the Karlsson line played against him a little bit. The Eichel line played against him a little bit. The fourth line with Nick Waugh and Keegan Kolesar played quite a few minutes against him. So they didn't seem to be matching up at all. That is curious because in the past series, Vegas has really matched up hard, especially like I remember back to the Oilers series. Connor McDavid didn't touch the ice without William Karlsson out there. Like it was every single time, to the point where Chris Knobloch was actually starting to avoid putting McDavid on the ice if Karlsson was out there first, which is absolutely crazy to even fathom, avoiding David on the ice. But that's how good of a shutdown center William Karlsson was. They felt in order to get McDavid going, we've got to get him away from that Karlsson line. So I think that if Kaprizov keeps playing, he only had one shot, but it seemed like every time the puck was on his stick, it was dangerous. He obviously had two brilliant passes. I wouldn't be surprised if Karlsson ends up being kind of following him around moving forward and seeing if they can get that matchup to try to calm that line down. That's one of the like chess matches in this game that I'm looking forward to in game 2.
Well, and then as he puts some onus on other guys, the Wild to step up too, because like clearly the offense was spearheaded by Kaprizov's brilliant pass on the Boldy goal, and then Boldy was just terrific. I thought continuing his play down the stretch of just being so engaged and physically around the net. So it'll put onus, I think, on the Wild's other guys, whether it's Hartman, who saw elevated up, Foligno, or the Johansson and Zuccarellos, because there wasn't much maybe offense beyond that group, I think, last night. And you're only going to get one power play a game. You can't rely on that one going forward.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be tough. I mean, it seems like a goal here or there is going to be the difference in every game.
What did you see, Jesse? Because you said like kind of the same team you've watched all year. We don't want to overanalyze one game, but that's the business we're in. Like, did you see anything concerning on the Vegas side? Something you're like, oh, this is something I really want to see them fix.
Yeah, I mean, early in the game, they were really slow breaking the puck in their zone. It just seemed like their feet weren't going, and I don't know if that's the case of they sat some guys the last 2 games of the regular season to give them a break. That could have been just them being a little rusty, like not in game shape. But I think that at times this year, when Vegas has struggled to score, it's when their transition offense dries up. Like this team is so good in transition with Eichel and Stone and Karlsson and Smith and Barbashev and Hurdle and Dorofiev. They have so many guys that are great in transition. When you can limit the transition chances and shut down the rush game, that's when this team can struggle to score. Is like, now Hurdle did a great job of manufacturing that goal, but for the most part, that is to me where, like, if you're trying to beat the Golden Knights, it's don't give them anything in transition and force them to find ways to score with sustained zone time. And I thought Minnesota did that well. So if you're looking at how can Minnesota win this series, like, well, that's how, and they literally did it in that game. They were 1 goal away from being right there. So I think that The fact that Minnesota was able to not turn the puck over and not give up, like I can't even remember a bad turnover for the Wild, like really in the neutral zone the entire game, that led to anything going the other way. So the fact that they were able to execute that, and both teams knew that was going to be the game plan going in, so they did it. I thought that they proved that they could absolutely play with this Vegas team and play the style of hockey that can win games against them. It fell just a little short, and that's this Golden Knights team. They've been doing it for a while. They find ways to win. Like when you play into their style and it's 6-7, they'll win, or they can play your style and they'll still find a way to win. They win with their C game more than any team in the NHL. And that's why they end up winning the division every year. It's like they just win with their C game so many times. And I'm not saying last night was their C game. They were definitely better than that, but they weren't at their best and they weren't necessarily playing the style that suits them best. And I still thought that they found a way to win. And that's just kind of what this team does.
Yeah, and I for both of you, maybe this is a weird comment, but I feel like this is the first time that I've watched a game one, and obviously you feel better if you win, but do we have a game where both teams came out feeling better than they did going into game one, just with how they both played and executed? This interview is brought to you by our friends at Waggle Golf. Waggle Golf believes what you wear on the course should reflect your individuality, who you are, where you're from, your hobbies, interests, and passions. All the stuff that makes you, well, you. That's why every design is inspired by the desire to create a piece of apparel that strikes a chord when you see it, that makes you say, wow, that was made for me. Because in a lot of ways, it was. Ready to get your Waggle on? Go to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 at checkout to take 10% off your entire order.
I think they certainly might. I mean, Joe he was in the room. He can give the Wild side, but I thought it was a very competitive game.
Yeah, I think that's what Philip Gustafson said post game. He's like, we were right there with them to the end, and that's how it's going to be the rest of the series. Like, obviously, they were disappointed and frustrated that they lost because they felt that they left something out there, right? They felt like they played well enough, like you say, to get a point or two. You felt you played well enough to win, or felt enough to get there, and they did a lot of really good things right. They were committed. Their forecheck was there. Their top players, delivered in a certain way with Boldy and Kaprizov. Got some key saves from Gustafson. Clearly, the penalty kill, which has been an issue all year, that cost them on that power play goal, which was the difference. But like you said, there's maybe a couple odd-man rushes last game. They didn't give up a ton. Maybe the Howder one, maybe one other one. The breakaway by Eichel, of course. But overall, I think they played the kind of game they needed to play in order to beat Vegas, right? A quality game one on the road. Now, it wasn't the win like they had 2 years ago in Dallas, and they double overtime victory, and Gustafson had 52 saves. That was just a different element. But I think that should give them confidence going into game two and the rest of the series. Like, if they play this kind of hockey and maybe, get one extra save or one extra shot that goes in or one extra deflection, that they're not that – as much as they made the playoffs by the skin of their teeth with 20 seconds left of their season, like, this is not a team that's, when they're healthy – like an 8th seed. It feels like they have a little more in them than that, or a 7th seed. I'm sorry, but so I think you're right. I think both teams, Vegas feels good because they won, and obviously they found a way with their B or B- game to win. And the Wild showed they know the recipe now. Like, this is the recipe that could probably get us there. And then obviously I think Zeev Buium, playing his first NHL game, first game in 10 days. I think this will be a step forward for him eventually here. Now that he's had that the nerves out of the way and can see the speed of the game and see how things are different. That only help him maybe to be a difference maker later in the series if he continues to play.
Yeah, absolutely. And want to go through this with both of you. Joe, we'll start with you. What's the key going into game two for the Wild?
Well, I mean, I think it's kind of generating a little bit more offense besides their top line, right? Like, they're good in the forecheck other groups, but you saw some line shuffling as the game went on. Ryan Hartman got elevated instead of Freddie Gaudreau, and you kind of seen kind of mixing and matching. But I think that is going to be a huge thing, and that because that they're going to key up on Kaprizov and Boldy won't have 2 goals every game. So finding that offense, and obviously the face-off circle, which is something that the Wild have had issues with, cost them on a couple of the goals there. You lose a draw, interference or not on Vegas on the power play goal. They still losing some key draws, and that's where you can lose games when you have those key moments. So Overall, I think they did a lot of things right. They're not going to play a perfect game as far as not take a penalty. They got one last game, so I think overall, just trying to find a way to generate a little bit more 5 out of 5. That's the kind of game they're going to have to play the rest of the way.
Yeah, and Jesse, before we get into keys for Vegas, the Hartman penalty, like you said, like pretty black and white, just missed call. A little bit more controversy, especially on the Twitter around the face-off in question. Is that playoff hockey, or is that something that, like, roles reversed, you would have wanted to see called on Minnesota?
I get why people, especially if you're a Wild fan, are going to want that penalty because it looks like a penalty. They're tied up. I personally didn't have a problem with it. I thought that, like, I think that if you, yes, it was technically interference by the rule, but I think that if you called interference every time two guys tied up longer than a second after the faceoff, you just call in interference calls all night long. Cassidy even said after the game, like, Hurdle played it exactly how he told him to. Face off, tie up, straight to the net, and he screened the goalie. So I think it made it worse because it was Gaudreau, right? That was tied up with Hurdle. I think what made it worse was Gaudreau. It looked like their sticks were tied up, and it looked like Gaudreau tried to jump over the sticks and tripped himself, essentially. Like I didn't think that Hurdle stuck his stick out and tripped him. I thought that the sticks were tied up. Gaudreau saw a lane and thought, if I just jump over these sticks, I'll be racing out to the point where I'm supposed to get to. And I think he tried that, and his foot just hit the sticks. That's how I saw it, at least on the replays. But yeah, I mean, I understand why anyone would say that's interference. They're clearly tied up. The puck's not there anymore. But I also see that play off of a face-off a million times, and it just happened to directly lead to a goal, so everybody focuses on it.
There's a lot of interference last night on both sides, but there's a lot of things you could have called interference. I think even like the Ek penalty, I think he was getting interfered with, and then he got his stick up, and then for the high sticking call. So we'll see if there's an adjustment in game 2. We'll see if maybe there's more calls in game 2, but it's something clearly I think players will have to kind of be conscious in their mind of maybe you can get away with something, or maybe this is kind of a style of play that's going to be allowed a little bit the rest of the way, and that could affect the way there's a forechecks going or battles in front of the net or anything like that.
Considering Vegas's power play was like the best in the league all year, and I think they ended up finishing second because they were cold at the end of the year, but and Minnesota's penalty kill struggles the way it is, I feel like it's not a good thing for Minnesota if they start calling more penalties, because they're going to call them both ways. Like I think a 3 penalty game, it was really a 2 penalty game, the one at the end. But yeah, a 3 penalty game to me is more in Minnesota's favor than a 6 penalty game where each team gets 3 chances. At least that's how I see it.
Well, I think 5-on-5, you're right. I think they're happy with their 5-on-5 game, and their power play hasn't been great either down the stretch. They had moved to a 5-forward unit up until before they brought in Zeev too, so they were trying to tinker with things there. So yeah, I mean, I think most times if you're a good team, you're okay playing a lot of the things 5-on-5. It's more so of like when it's just a 1-goal game, and sometimes your offense is drying up, and those power plays could be like that kind of like the golden sun, like, okay, this is a chance to get sure. I don't think anybody wants a 7 penalty. I don't think the writers want 7 penalties. I don't think fans want 7 penalties. I just think overall, when there's certain plays that are egregious or perceived egregious or make a difference on a play like a goal, which is why Hines was upset about the no call interference on the face-off play, because that directly within the 6 seconds was in the back of their net.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So, Jesse, before we get to our final question here, what do you see as the key for Vegas then going into game 2?
Just staying patient on the back end. I thought that the defensemen did a great job moving puck up the ice, especially better as the game went on. I think maybe the first 10 minutes, as I mentioned, they were a little slow moving their feet, breaking the puck out of the zone. But I think that as long as Vegas isn't turning the puck over across their own blue line, trying to get out of there, they're going to be, I mean, their defensive structure is so good when everyone's in the zone and it's a sustained zone possession, and they get set in their zone defense. It is so difficult to get to the middle of the ice. You just see shots from outside, and it makes Adin Hill's life easy, and he makes a ton of saves, and he doesn't give up many rebounds either. And it's just so hard to score on them. Where they get into trouble is when they start trying to force plays, trying to get that trend. Like I mentioned, they're so good in transition, and they've got such good puck movers on the back end with guys like Theodore and Pietrangelo and Hannafin that they want, like, it's in their DNA to try to make those plays. But Bruce Cassidy is just trying to trying to tell them not to constantly. That's like the battle of this team, basically. If they can stay patient like they were in game one, not force those plays, I think the Golden Knights are going to win this series. If they start to get impatient, if Minnesota can start to pressure them a little more on the forecheck and start making them make quicker decisions, that's where, to me, if you told me how does this series go sideways for Vegas, that's it right there. It's poor puck management by the defense, breaking out of the zone, trying to make too many long, flashy passes to spring that transition offense.
Nice. So let's talk golf.
All
Confirm
right.
or deny? Rumor has it Jesse Granger's a stick.
I'm not too bad. I'm a solid golfer.
Off the tee, we've heard there's some pretty legendary stories and some athletic golf outings that you paid off the tee a little further than maybe, let's say, a Scott Wheeler or a Ian Mendez or somebody like that, you know.
Yeah, I got out there with Mark Lazarus and Ian Mendez, and yeah, I do hit the ball a long way. It's a big advantage.
Is it straight?
Yeah, it was going straight that day. Some days it's straighter than others, but yeah, I can hit it a long way. It's a big advantage. I absolutely love golf. I had never swung a golf club until the pandemic in 2020, and I've played hockey my whole life, and I just thought golf looked like boring. And my dad's a golfer. My dad had been trying to get me into golf for so long, and I wouldn't do it. I'm like, no, I'm a hockey player. And then the pandemic happens, and it's like, okay, well, the only way you're allowed to leave your house is if you go play golf on the golf course. I'm like, all right, I'm in. So I go out there, literally one round, and I am obsessed with it. I'm dedicating the rest of my life to being good at this stupid sport. I absolutely love it. I basically play once a week ever since then, and I go to the range another 3 or 4 times a week. I just love hitting golf balls. It's so much fun.
Dang. I'm jealous that you've picked it up that quick, because it took me about that long to lose it, and I can't get it back.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you think you've got it figured out. That's the worst thing ever, because it's like, oh, I figured it out. Look at it. It's great. Well, tomorrow you will not have it figured out. It's going to be a disaster. And that's why everybody loves the game so much, because you can't get good at it. It's like impossible, but it's so much fun. And when you hit that perfect shot, there's no better feeling.
It's like the one thing people do that they're bad at, that they continue to keep on doing over and over again, no matter if they are like, think about anything else you do in your life and you're like, I'm bad at this. I'm not going to do this anymore. Like that. Like, I'm not a handyman. I'm not going to start building shelves and stuff like that. We don't want to do that all the time. No, but if I'm not a great golfer, I'll still go out there and play. It's just like all you need is 1 or 2 good shots around, keeps you coming back, gives you that juice, like my grandfather said, and just when you come back. So plus it's a beautiful thing to do in Minnesota summers, which are God's gift, and it's starting relatively soon, we hope. So but yeah, it's a fun pastime for all of us who aren't good at it but want to get better.
Final question, brought to you as always by our good friends at Waggle Golf. First, make sure you head over to getyourwaggleon.com, throw in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order.
Jesse, I don't care if we're talking celebrities, athletes, dead or alive. Give me a fictional character if you want. Doesn't matter. 3 people you're taking out on the course with you for your dream golf foursome, and bonus points if you give the people the best place to golf in Vegas.
Ooh. So the place I went with Ian Mendez and Mark Lazarus is called Revere Golf Club, and it is gorgeous. I mean, there are a million good golf courses out here, and like there are courses better than that one, trust me. But for the price, if you're not trying to spend an insane amount of money, you want to play a really unique golf course, Revere is my favorite. That's kind of my go-to to take people to when they come out to Vegas to kind of get a taste of like something different that's not just your average golf course. Revere is awesome. As far as the foursome goes, so I'll start by saying Tiger Woods is in my foursome. I'm absolutely not going to pick, like, there's no way I could do this without picking Tiger Woods. And I will throw a shout out to your sponsor, Waggle. My favorite, I'm not wearing it right now, but my favorite golf hat I've ever owned is the Waggle Tiger. It's like a goat.
Yeah.
But it's got tiger stripes, and everybody always asks me, like, what the hell is this hat you're wearing? I absolutely love the goat tiger striped Waggle hat. So he's in my foursome. I'm going to go Patrick Waugh. I am a goalie. I grew up in Colorado. He's a legend, and he seems like a crazy person. So, anyone that crazy, golf, he's got to be an absolute lunatic. So, definitely Patrick Waugh, Tiger Woods. And then the other 2, I'll go classic Vegas. I'll go Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. And for anyone listening, I don't know, maybe everybody knows this story. Maybe people don't. I don't know how, like, popular this story is outside of Vegas, but everyone who golfs knows the beverage cart, knows the beer girl coming around with the beverages, and not everybody knows how that actually started. And it was Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin in Vegas. They refused to play 18 holes unless they could get cocktails on the course. So at the time, I think it was the Desert Inn golf course, I want to say. They were like, well, I mean, these guys aren't going to play here unless we give them drinks during the round. So they literally like built a bar on the back of a golf cart and found a way to get the cocktails on there. And now you can't go to a golf course without finding a beverage cart. So Tiger Woods, Patrick Waugh, and the two guys that invented the beverage cart is my foursome.
They need to be heralded way more for this. More people need to hear this, because that's the only reason I can go out and golf. What's the go-to for you, Jesse, out on the course? Are you doing beers? Are you doing like a spiked Arnie Palmer? Do you have a different cocktail?
Yeah. Arnold Palmer's the way to go. Yeah. And some days it's spiked, some days it isn't. But either way, the Arnold Palmer's the way to go. Nice and refreshing. Plus, you get a little buzz if you drink a couple of them.
Yeah, if you have those in your foursome and you have your full cards, I'll ride the beverage card person. I'll ride with them. I'll ride shotgun with them and just kind of follow around like that. So it's better than caddying. So, but yeah. But thanks so much for joining us. Obviously, the way that game one turned out, it could be maybe a longer series than people maybe anticipated. At least people at MGM thought, but we'll find out. Game two on Tuesday at I think local time, like 1 a.m. in Minnesota. Tuesday,
we do things late in Vegas. Everybody, 8 o'clock is insane, and then you factor in the time zone difference. It's pretty wild that they're doing that. But
Gary Bettman hates the Central Time Zone. We know it.
Anyways, well, thanks again. Good seeing you, and we'll see you at the rig.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.